Greetings, Sculpturians! Thank you for returning. We've got some great stuff to talk about today. We're talking about Marvel shills, or even shills. Because, well, let's face it, some people will shill for anything as long as they still keep that access media access going. And one of the main culprits, of course, is IGN. You won't be disappointed with this one, as they're trying to shill that it's fine if not every superhero movie makes $1 billion. Talk about Copium. Here we go! Now, before we get started, just a quick reminder of trying to get to 50,000 subscribers. I can't do that without all of you. And if you're one of the 40% that's here to watch the video and isn't subscribed, please click the red subscribe button today. Let this be the day that I earn your permanent business. Because, hey, I make tons of stuff for you each and every week, and I do a lot of live streams that are very educational. Now, let's jump into the story from, I'm not going to say friends, from the people at IGN. Why it's fine if not every superhero movie makes $1 billion. What a title, and only from a shill. You can only get this kind of coverage from a shill. The subtitle of Reining in the Supermen, kind of amusing. This is from Carlos Morales, and it came out on August 28th, and by the time you're seeing this, it's probably well separated. Coming from them, comic book fans rejoice. 2025 was a good year for superhero movies. What? 4 things that didn't make money. One of them embarrassingly losing money. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I can agree with them. Disastrous 2024 indeed. That slate marred by misfires like Madam Web, Joker, Folie à Deux, and Kraken the Hunter. 2025 righted the ship with solid entries. How so? Superman didn't make over the $700 million absolute minimum it needed to make anything in DC successful in the future. Fantastic Four, are you kidding me? What a flop. And Thunderbolts, the guaranteed flop where they correct the name to New Avengers. We don't have to talk about Captain America. You probably don't want to. What a mess. But you might not know that going by fan chatter online, that would be us, by the way, not naming us exactly, which was largely been dominated by vitriol towards the DCU's Superman from angry Zack Snyder fans, which I think that's true. Claims that Fantastic Four First Steps is a bomb, which it is. Disney's about to tell you that because it's going to go to a release, which we'll talk about in a later video. And the F4 franchise is doomed. Well, not as doomed as the rest of Marvel. It's all kind of equally doomed now. Of course, the worry exists that the MCU and DCU will die off because of the nebulous but seemingly ever-present superhero fatigue phenomena. And I'm not sure it's superhero fatigue, but I think it's studio fatigue. I think nobody trusts what's coming out of these studios anymore. Warner Brothers has a slightly more successful track record in 2025, but Disney found a way to avoid profitability left and right. With the exception of Lilo and Stitch, you can't point towards a winner. It's been a disaster. The trend of terminally online film goers trying to be box office hawks, well, if you're trying to aim at me, friends, you missed. Because you've been wrong about everything. Saying that I fail to grasp the full scope of theatrical economics. Well, again, I don't think you're talking about me specifically, but I know more about theatrical economics than you do. The obscene expectation that franchise movies should easily clear the $1 billion threshold lest they be deemed abject failures is a blight on the film industry, and this line of thought does not accurately reflect how movies are absorbed by popular culture. Lots of gobbledygook in that particular sentence, and I could just say it's actually the budget of the film, or the actual money that it took to make it, not necessarily the published budget before they've shot frame 1, but what it actually costs to deliver and to promote that actually dictates whether something is a win or a loss. People can enjoy a loss, but it doesn't make it successful, and I don't want to pretend or quibble about the definition of flop or not. Let's take a look at how adjusting our expectations for blockbuster performance would make the film discussion space much better for everyone. No, it doesn't. It means you are willing to lie to the consumer about what they saw, which is dumb. They know what they saw, whether they enjoyed it or not, and they can look at box office receipts versus what the thing actually cost and cost to promote and figure it out. It's a pretty easy number. Take the actual production budget, multiply it times 3, that's your break even. It's that simple. The $1 billion benchmark. See, this is their argument because they themselves don't understand movie economics. They think that everybody looks at the $1 billion number and thinks that's the benchmark for success, and it's not. It can sometimes be hard to remember now, but the world of blockbuster filmmaking wasn't always about massive superhero movies making all the money in the world. Superhero movies have been a popular part of the cultural landscape since at least 1978, when Richard Donner's first Superman film, but the trend didn't quite catch on in the movie-going mainstream, meaning we could expect at least one big superhero movie each year until the turn of the millennium, which I agree. When the first Blade, X-Men, and Spider-Man films cemented the genre as one of Hollywood's safest bets, yet even in 2002, when Sam Raimi's Spider-Man became the first movie in history to pull in over $100 million in a single weekend, the idea of a film generating over $1 billion in theatrical revenue was nearly unheard of. That's true. But they also spend more and more money on those films. After Avengers 1, future movies in the genre would have their success graded by both fans and executives on how close they got to the mythical $1 billion mark. Not to mention how many times fans would go back and watch the same film, because that was what really got you there much faster. Now, you don't have a lot of repeat film going, if any at all, and that's a big problem. We say nearly because, like with most things, James Cameron did it first with 1997's Titanic. An unprecedented $1.8 billion during its theatrical run, what had been seen by many as a one-time event that could never hope to be replicated, would only become more common nearly a decade after Titanic's debut. In fact, the third movie that was ever passing the $1 billion benchmark was Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Man's Chest in 2006. Return of the King was second for those keeping score at home, but that's not even 20 full years ago. But in only a couple of short decades, we now have $58 billion movies, meaning the expectation of what franchise films are capable of has shifted so drastically that how things used to work has been all but forgotten. And a lot of that is because, and this is something they don't note because it's IGN, inflation and the cost of movie tickets and everything else, including the cost of making these films. In fact, they have to make that $1 billion benchmark in many cases because otherwise they run the risk of not being profitable at all, let alone being able to claim being close to break even. Skipping ahead, it's an irrational way of thinking about films, not just because it entirely skips over whether or not the movie is good, but also because it paints the perceptions of movies with more measured box office runs. Superman and Fantastic Four: First Steps in particular. Yeah, they ran them short. They removed them and set them out to digital, which is not bad in and of itself, but it's not quite going through the normal cycle that films used to go through. And this is something else IGN ignores. You had to wait for a long time before you got any kind of digital release, let alone something on Blu-ray or DVD, and then it would always cycle through the premium pay channels on cable. After that, it would sometimes make it to just some of the regular movie channels as it made its way into retail stores, where it got a second bit of love, usually a boost in what was the box office numbers and what the earnings potential could be. You also seemingly had a lot more merchandise available for these films, or even television shows for that matter, that would actually sell. None of that happens now, especially with the MCU. And here's a little bit of equivocating. Good isn't bad. As of this writing, Superman is looking to tap out of the box office with just over $600 million worldwide, which it's actually doing. And the Fantastic Four: First Steps will cross $500 million, which at the time of this writing, it's still not there. It's probably going to be in 5th or 6th or even 7th place when we looked at the top 10 back on Monday. And I have to tell you, that's just not enough. It's not even close to break even. They like to claim that both of these are respectable tallies, but you wouldn't know that from how they're discussed online. Yeah, because they're being talked about with reliable understanding of what it takes to make a profit in the box office. Studios need to find a way to make a profit, and they haven't been for a while now. Much has been made about how DCU's Superman won't pass the 670 million worldwide gross of Man of Steel. Well, I don't think anybody ever would have been able to compare that, because if you look at that number when adjusted for inflation now, it's miles away from being able to compare, let alone meet it where it is at the time. First Steps is far and away the most successful Fantastic Four movie, both financially and with the critics, but the fact that we finally received a good Fantastic Four film, which I'll argue with, but not now, has been overshadowed by the death of the MCU sentiment and Post declaring the movie a massive bomb, even though that doesn't make sense. It makes absolutely perfect sense, and you are a shill. Maybe not as shilly as Collider, but you're a shill, because you can't admit that objectively the movie will end losing money again, which Marvel isn't supposed to do and shouldn't be doing, and tells you that the direction you've been going has been a failure, especially with the last several Marvel films, with the exception of Deadpool and Wolverine and maybe a Spidey or two. For one, the people actually involved in making these movies don't seem to be broken up by their performance. Of course not. They've already been paid, you dingus. In response to chatter that the $225 million budget, which is a lie, would need to gross at least $650 million just to break even, director James Gunn responded by saying such a claim is absolutely false. I don't care what he says. He's a proven liar. We've already seen it multiple times. The Flash was not the best DC film ever made, so are you going to claim that for evidence too there, IGN? Probably should watch it. Disney CEO Bob Iger defended First Steps on an earnings call and seemed happy with the result. I don't know about that. He's calling it new IP, which was absolutely a lie. It's very, very old IP. It's been done multiple times before. And the first one done in the modern age was actually a pretty decent movie and did very well financially when you adjust it for inflation. Of course, everybody knows that the $200 million price tag that obviously IGN is clinging to on First Steps versus a $500 million run means it's not a runaway hit, but it's not a bomb either. Only if your word bomb doesn't include in its definition losing money, because it's losing money. And what's funny is Disney claims all kinds of stuff and it's always a lie. And then here's the really dumb thing they say. And if these movies were really such colossal failures, would they both currently have sequels in development? Do you know how many different things get put into development and then get buried? Especially with Disney. They've been doing it all the time. They've just canceled a bunch of live action remakes that they have no intention of moving forward on. So wake up, IGN. You're in the clouds. And because this article goes on for what seems like forever, we're just going to cut to the chase in their actual poll question at the end of it, because that kind of tells you that they don't know what they're talking about, who they were writing the article for, or even have an understanding of the audience that goes to see things. The question being, do you care how much money a superhero movie makes? You have your answers yes, no, depends on the movie. Let's talk in the comments. Well, I do care about how much a movie makes, but I also care about whether or not I enjoy it. And that's an entirely other conversation. You can enjoy a film and it doesn't make any money. I enjoyed a few films that I had audiences disagreeing with me left and right. But then again, they didn't make money. So either my opinion of the movie is different and I'm wrong, or maybe I enjoyed it, but nobody else did. It can happen that way. But what doesn't happen is investors getting super excited about a flop and something that fails to make a profit. And to be fair, if you don't make a profit, you're a flop. I'm sorry. It's the truth. But look, IGN always shills. Doesn't matter if it's a game, doesn't matter if it's a film, doesn't matter if it's a TV show. They are going to do their level best to keep that access and to CYA for any of the studios with whom they have a relationship. And they're not unlike Collider, as I mentioned before, or any of the other shill sites out there. But what they are, in this particular case, is loads of disingenuous. And that the dude cannot abide. But how about you? Do you think it's okay if every superhero film is subpar? Do you think that if they fail financially, they're not a flop? Do you think at this point that Shill Media's job is to just somehow try to hold up the things that used to be popular before they got politicized? Or do you think they're just trying to survive with enough clicks to beat out the other failing opponents that they have in their sphere? Because let's not forget, there's a lot of these entities getting purchased and sold out to nameplate holders like Sports Illustrated was a few years ago, or like Kotaku has been recently. And finally, were there any flops this year that you enjoyed that, well, will never have a sequel made? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. And as always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya! But probably not reading IGN anymore.